Good morning, and thank you for joining us this beautiful Saturday morning. I am Alero Edu, welcoming you to Sunrise.
Indeed, it's a beautiful day here in Lagos. I don't know what part of the world you're watching us from or part of the country. I hope it's as beautiful as it is in Lagos. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Yomi Otaibe.
Yes, very busy week. The president has been up and about, Brazil and all that, you know. COP29 is happening in Azerbaijan. And we're hearing that the price of cooking gas has gone up again to 18,750. And like
That's for like 12.5 kg.
And like that comedian said, well, asked, so when you buy the gas for 17,800, what about the food you're going to cook on that gas?
Okay, you're not going to finish that 12.5 kg for one meal. So,
still, if you recall, this time last year, I think we were buying gas for about 7,000 to 8,000. So it's a huge jump.
It is.
Coupled with all the other expenses you have to cope with.
Of course,
major of them being transportation costs.
And transportation linked to fuel. But I saw this morning, I was sharing with you before we came on air, that last week, or I think 2 weeks ago, you mentioned that you saw, I think like 5 naira difference.
50 naira.
Is it 50 naira? From 1,080 naira per liter to 1,075. That's 5 naira.
They said there was a slash in the price of fuel.
Well, I saw this morning that, you know, the filling station that was selling at 1,075 is now selling for 1,045 naira.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a huge slash, isn't it?
I'm sure it's not the kind of slash that Nigerians are looking forward to. I'm not sure anybody wants to buy for above 1,000 naira, even at 500.
Nobody wants to buy more than 500 naira.
But, you know, all of the stakeholders have said that we can't do 500 naira.
Within which the thing has climbed is what is shocking everybody's pocket, because it doesn't look like salaries have increased. And you have to pay
when companies, most companies, organizations are struggling to stay alive.
Shutting down, and you have to pay 3 times more what you were paying before for transportation. And like, I mean, I saw a skit when somebody phoned his worker. You know, they come work today. He said, Oga, enough it come. I reach bus stop, then say, XYZ amount. What you are paying me can't even pay for just my transport a month. Say, so you know, can't work. So, guy, you go do the work by yourself.
Wow, and that's, yes, it's a skit, but it's something that speaks to the realities on ground. A lot of companies having to deal with high cost of production and services, and you know, all of this ripple effect happening, and
it's not all jobs that you can do from home. I mean, if you're a factory worker, there's no way you can produce whatever it is from home. You have to go into the factory floor and actually do a lot of work like that. In the factory, yes. Not all jobs can be done from home. Well, that's the reality of our lives in Nigeria today. That's just it.
If you are talking of gas, some people are saying even kerosene is not anywhere near, you know, the reach of the average Nigerian.
True.
And a lot more people, I would think, use, you know, in those rural areas, use kerosene and all of this.
Even kerosene, is kerosene cheap? And the one that irks me the most about this gas business is that government spent a lot of money carrying out all those campaigns about trying to get people from using firewood to using gas. So if the gas is so expensive, how do you want people to leave what they're used to come into using an expensive option? So all that money used for all those campaigns is just gone to naught. If you're selling 1 kilo of gas for 1,500 naira, I mean, and I can buy firewood for a few hundred naira.
Even firewood is not cheap now. Charcoal is not cheap.
I know that charcoal is not cheap.
So, well, I'm sure a lot of Nigerians are looking forward to, this turning around the corner that the government has been speaking about, that, we are going to see a significant, improvement in our economy. Yes. Well, we'll just hold them by their words and
the renewed hope. Oh, I'm still talking about fuels. Mr. Melekari, I'm calling you out again because the last time you spoke about the Port Harcourt refinery, you had said to us that, and I'm calling you out maybe for the second or third time on this program, you said it would start working in September. This is the end of November, and you still haven't said a word to us. Please, Mr. Kiari, what is the position with the Port Harcourt refinery?
Nigerians want to know. We want to know if it's still mechanical completion, if it's still, whatever the status is, just so we know and, we understand what the NNPCL is also going through so that, all Nigerians are on the same page on this matter. So
when you give us dates and things happen to change those dates, please come out and tell us something. Don't just keep quiet. It smacks of taking us for granted. We don't matter. I told them September, so what? Please let us know what is going on.
Okay.
Like they say, breath.
So what do we have for our viewers today on the show?
We're going to start with the proposed tax reform bills. The president has sent some bills to the House, and
there's a lot of, mixed reactions to it.
To hear the outcome of that. But some of them are very, very interesting. You need to stick with us to hear what the experts are going to say about all that.
And we'll also be talking about national identification, this multi-purpose national ID.
And then I'm sure you've heard about the COP29, the one taking place in Baku, Azerbaijan. Well, we'll be bringing you, it's drawing to a close now, so we'll be bringing you an update on that.
And lifestyle today is about unspoken burden of fathers, this burden that a lot of people, when it comes to issues, they think it's women and children. But today, we're going to focus on the men.
And to close today's program, we'll bring you an artist of the week. And all I will disclose is that she is a she.
An interesting she. So, stay with us on the show. It's going to be a jolly ride, we promise. And we'll be back in a moment to start off the show in earnest.
Thank you for being with us this Saturday morning. Let's start by looking at the proposed tax reform bills. On September 3rd this year, the President transmitted 4 tax reform bills to the National Assembly for consideration following the recommendations of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal and Tax Reforms headed by our own Taiwo Oyedele for the review of existing tax laws. The bills include the Nigeria Tax Bill 2024, which is expected to provide the fiscal framework for taxation in the country, and the Tax Administration Bill, which will provide a clear and concise legal framework for all taxes in the country and reduce disputes. Others are the Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Bill, which will repeal the Federal Inland Revenue Service Act and establish the Nigeria Revenue Service, and the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill, which will create a tax tribunal and tax ombudsman. What is the meaning of all this? That's why we have an expert with us in the studio this morning in the person of the president of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, Mr. Samuel Agbediyi.
Good morning. Good morning.
And thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So, I'm sure you have gone through these various bills that the president has sent.
I have, and I'm still going through.
Good. So, does all this fit into the economic growth objectives of the current administration?
Thank you. I see that absolutely it fits into it. And it will, at the end of the day, it will help in sanitizing the tax space. And if you take a step backward a little bit, precisely under the immediate past administration of President Buhari, the issue has always been revenue, that Nigeria has revenue challenge. We had a situation whereby we are using about 98% of our revenue to service debt. That is a recipe for disaster. No country can survive that. No individual can survive that. So there was a need to work on making sure that we get sufficient revenue. But it will need to first of all get worse before it gets good, kind of. The B will first of all sanitize this tax space, if I can say that. No Nigerian, except those who are not interested in the progress of this country, will be proud of where we are coming from or where we are now. No nation can afford about 65 types of taxes. It's a recipe for disaster. Depending on the state where you go to, all manners of people pursuing you for taxes. And at the end of the day, our tax to GDP ratio did not reflect the number of taxes that are being collected. Meanwhile, countries where lesser number of taxes are collected are getting more tax revenue. So if we must fix the revenue deficiency, we must fix our tax laws. Some of the tax laws are as far back as in the 30s, specifically the Stamp Duty Act as amended. So you can't contemplate those who, it was actually in the ordinance era, and we shouldn't be talking of that at this time around. So putting everything together, and I need to say this, I could see a kind of sequence or logic in what the federal government is doing. The federal government came and President Tinubu said, it's not a lover of multiplicity of taxes. I said that before, no Nigerian should be proud of that. Now, it is not about saying that. He set up a committee, and that committee has come up with this report. The report is now in the National Assembly, whereby, first of all, because those of us who are in tax practice, we have always been having a headache of when you have international business people who want to come to Nigeria. One of the first questions they ask you is, your tax law. What will be their exposure in the next 1 year, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, as the case may be. Serious people plan. We don't just think everything will work. So when they put all those into their cash flow, and they realize that, so it was difficult for us as tax professionals to advise the international business community as to what to expect in Nigeria. But this is putting an end to that. Certainty of law, certainty of tax administration. That is a major benefit and important, and it is going to rub off because only people who are not sincere benefit from chaotic situation. If you are sincere and something is certain, you don't have the ability to attain it this year or do it this year. You can plan for next year because you know what to expect. So, one, by virtue of these 4 bills, I can say it for a fact that government revenue will go down in the immediate term. So, unlike the comment out there that the government is increasing tax, we've explained as an institute Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria has explained and explained, government is not increasing tax. And where there is going to be future increase, what is compensating for that is a lot. And I can explain that in the course of this interview. So I tell you, we have a lot to benefit from this tax, and there's a definition of taxation or taxes by somebody that has so much love, and that tax is what to pay to live in a civilized environment. So if you want to live in a civilized environment, let's get serious about our tax, and let's make sure that it is done for the benefit of the country.
Mr. Belui, there's been plenty of talk about widening the tax net, that Nigeria will make a lot more money if it does that. What did this committee recommend regarding that?
Okay, thank you. Before the recommendation of the committee, let me say this. What the government is doing by virtue of this bill, like I said before, there is no increase. If anything, there is decrease. So, and I don't think anybody, no matter what, we want to decrease what is getting as income. So, but the government has taken this bold step because rates will be coming down and VAT that will be going up. What is going to compensate for that, and I will explain, is much more than the increase. So now, if you look at what is in it and what the bill intends to achieve, we are looking at bringing more people, because you are decreasing rate and you are giving a lot of exemption. That means your bottom line will go down. So how do you get the required more money? Public expenditure is increasing. Nigeria population is increasing. So how do you do that? I will go into previous policy of the federal government. You see, sometimes in Nigeria we throw away the baby with the bathwater. Governor Soludo of Anambra State, when he was the CBN governor, introduced cashless economy. That was a fantastic program. But of course, we didn't see that through. And for every Nigerian who has traveled outside the country, the moment you start bringing 50, 100 pounds out in UK, they look at you with, where is it coming from? South Africa, the same. Everywhere outside this country, nobody carry cash. Now, the benefit of that is that even the cost of printing money will go down. Cost of cash administration in the country will go down. Then it will bring a lot of people within the formal sector. We'll be talking of the informal sector over the years, and we are not doing enough. So if we follow through the cashless economy, a lot of people will come into the system. Now,
I'm sorry, before you go on, the banks haven't helped in that regard because they charge people for every single thing. So how are you going to tell the mama who has a little tray in front of her house and is selling some little wusi to put her money in the bank? When she'll get charged for putting the money in the bank, they will charge her for the card she's holding, they will charge her for taking it out, they will charge her for VAT, they will charge... I mean, there's so many charges, so the people are discouraged.
Okay, I agree with that. I also suffer that, and I don't like it. But the truth is that that is the reason why one of the reasons why we have government. We have CBN, the regulatory body. Without necessarily going deep into this discussion, it's been said over and over again that don't bring somebody from the bank or the banking sector to head CBN, because the tendency to protect their sector is always there. And we have seen that over the years. Now, I moved from Governor Soludo to Governor Emefiele. He also came with a Naira redesign. It's just about semantic. It's all about cash reduction in the hand of people. Once that is done, a lot of people will come into the financial space, and the activities will be captured. So, looking at the excess charges, CBN is there, is supposed to do the right thing. Why they are not doing that, we can't explain. But again, because every human activity will sort itself out, the fintech are already sorting out the established bank. The kind of charges you get from the established bank, you don't get from the fintech. We know the established bank are trying to muscle out the fintech, but I think the fintech are doing very well. You open an account with your phone, you get loan. Once you can get your utility bill and your identity across to them, you get loan, and life is getting better for even these people we are talking about. Because I travel, and on the road, I buy foodstuffs and the like, and I pay either with my bill transfer. The mama there will give you account to transfer to. If they don't trust that that transfer will go through, you get POS. So we need to do a lot in this regard. Now we need to link it to taxation. So once we have the record of many people, and oftentimes we take the informal sector as this mama put, as we call it. Informal sector activities beyond the low earner set of the people. If you go to Computer Village, if you go to Okeari, mama selling butter across the West African line, 4 by 10 by 8 rooms, they do billions of business.
Yes.
But with regard to them as informer, those set of people must come into the system so that they can be captured. Because, let me land on this. I can tell you that this bill has taken a very good look on the low income earner in the country. So those are not the people the government is looking out for, but those people who have the means and who are getting benefits of this country. If you are getting benefits from this country, can you give back to the country so that the country can get better?
Okay, you have said that people need to come into the tax system, but there's a lot of trust deficit when it comes to taxation, because people would say, I have been paying my tax, but I can't see the benefit. I can't enjoy the benefit because we do not know how this, the monies collected from taxation is administered. Our roads are still bad. Electricity is still not what it should be. All of those things that are basic,
potable water
that Nigerians should enjoy. So how would you encourage Nigerians watching and saying, okay, this is going to be different, or these are the areas you should look out for, and this is what you should ask, your representatives concerning, how the monies that you pay as taxes are being used?
Thank you. I like the phrase trust deficit. As an institute, CITN has been on this. It's part of our major advocacy program. We've been on this for several years. You see, I'm not going to give you my money if I don't trust you. So, and the facts are out there. In West Africa, Nigeria's tax to GDP is not even measuring up with that of Ivory Coast, Ghana, and the likes. That means we don't trust our leaders to give money to them. And we can't overemphasize that. It is important. It's the way to go. In fact, we conducted a research some time ago, and one of the main points that came out as to the reason why there is a low tax compliance in the country is because of this trust deficit. So as we advocate for people to come into the tax net, pay their taxes and the likes, we are also saying the same thing to the government. And oftentimes again, we concentrate on the federal government. You are in the news sector, if I can say that. You know what is going on in this country. Some state governors don't stay in their state. You have appealed to people, you have campaigned, you have done everything. You want to be the governor. And the best place for you to stay is Abuja. Some people made Abuja good. And if you are not in Abuja, you are in Dubai. Some people made Dubai good. So we say this, and with all emphasis, that the way we have plundered resources, revenue from oil, we can't go on that trajectory concerning tax revenue. Otherwise, the laws will be there, and people will be circumventing the law. The living standards of our leaders, some of them we agree they were rich before they got to office. But again, that's what you need to give. There is a local saying in the local palace: if you fry groundnut for the blind, you whistle. Because if you are not whistling, the blind will believe that something is going on in your mouth. But if you are whistling, the man knows that somebody who is whistling is not eating the groundnut. So we need, it's a fiduciary duty. You need to do a lot in this area. And we expect that to come from federal government and go to the state. We need to hold our leaders
and even the local government.
And even the local government, because the structure, if you see the level of advisors, PA to PA, senior assistant to assistant, all manners of structure in the state, that is not helping development. We need to work on this. And as we are discussing the economic stabilization bill, comprising those 4 bills we have mentioned, we need to lay emphasis on this. The law may be good. Sometimes I have sympathies for the revenue staffs, because they collect the money, they are not the ones spending. But taxpayers visit them with their anger, because they are the people they see collecting the money. So our members across the country who are working in the revenue, sometimes we have sympathy for them. They are to explain what they don't know about. So trust deficit is important. It must be addressed.
Okay, let me take us back to the issues of, you had mentioned that there will be some decreased rates.
Yes, Ali.
And then there will be some increase.
Exactly.
Let's speak to, for instance, organizations. In what areas will it be decreased for them? In what areas will it increase? And if it also applies to individuals?
It applies to individual. And I will start from the individual. Before now, minimum wage was 30,000, and that's 360,000 per annum. That minimum wage has moved to 70,000, about 800,000 per annum. So whoever is earning 70,000 is not going to pay any tax, any personal income tax in form of payee. That is not going to happen. That means, but before now, or as we speak, until this bill becomes a law and operational, whoever is earning 70,000 today is still paying taxes to government, to the state government. So that is a major benefit to the individual and a loss to the state. Ironically,
what do you want to take from someone that is collecting 70,000 anyway?
Tax is law. And I'm talking about
I know.
When they were collecting 30, they were still paying, they were still paying taxes.
So now that is a relief for people within that bracket. Now for company, effective from next year, company income tax as we speak is 30%. It's coming down to 27.5%. That is to allow for money to be in the hand of business owners. Now we need to say this. Tax obligation and tax compliance brings about reduction in your cash flow, your working capital. So if you are paying 30%, you are reducing 30% from your 100. You have 70 left. If you are now reducing 27.5, that means it's getting better. That is one thing. Another is the VAT aspect, and I'm very happy about this VAT. Before now, if you import, let's say I want to start business and I bring in machinery, taxation is economics. So you can't run away from economics when you are discussing taxation. Now, it is important to have equipment, furniture and the likes to make your company run. And that is where startup becomes very heavy and difficult for businesses. So they spend a whole lot of money, borrow as the case may be. And you buy this equipment. As we speak, you can't retrieve whatever you spend until possibly 5 years or 6 years, as the case may be. What is happening now is whatever is spent, you get your refund over the years through capital allowance. Depending on the particular item, it's subjected to capital allowance calculation, and on a yearly basis, it will be deducted until it is done. That means you have spent, for example, 1 billion this year to make sure that your business can work and start doing well. But that 1 billion you are not going to retrieve fully until 5 years' time, as the case may be. Looking into the implication of time value of money, that is a major damaging practice, and it is not international. So that which is another benefit of this bill. It's a local thing. So when you tell somebody in US that you can't retrieve your money, it's what is happening?
Yeah.
But with this, you will retrieve your money by way of input tax, because input VAT, VAT is calculated by output, what is sold, and you deduct your cost. So this cost of equipment will be deducted, and it is most likely that you have sold your sales or whatever is 100 million, and you have spent 150 billion or whatever. That means the government will be owing you, and the refund system in this bill has been made simpler. So there are not, I can see a lot of generosity in this bill, provided the government will do the spending or whatever is in their hand where I go back to the trust deficit. So that is another benefit. If, as we speak, if your turnover is 25 million, you are accepted from company income tax and VAT. But that threshold has been moved to 50 million. Meaning that if you are, and that is a small business anyway, if your turnover is 50 million and below, you are not going to pay VAT, you are not going to pay company income tax. That is giving you breathing space. And when you do well, and that is I think that's the culture we need to cultivate. When you do well, you prosper, you have enough money. But we should allow people to do their business, do well, and when they are doing well, then they give their fair share back to the government. So that is another benefit to company and individual.
I'm sure you've seen or you've heard the discussion around the derivation distribution. VAT, you're smiling. That has
the vexatious issue.
Yes, a lot
VAT
of reactions. Could you just explain to us how this works so that perhaps a lot of people would understand better how it will work? Because I think the current law now states that 15% will go to the federal government, 35% to the 50% to the state, and 35% to the local government.
Okay, thank you. I would rather we don't go to this area of the derivation.
But you know that's the
I will try.
It's a very important issue,
yes, but I will avoid the political angle, because we keep on talking about derivation. We keep on talking about sharing, but we also need to bring on board value creation. Value-added tax is about value creation, and you add value. The first person has added 2.5 value. It goes to the next person. It's a chain, and that next person adds 150 cover. Before you know it, the final consumer is the one who is going to bear the brunt, and that is why we call it consumption tax. Now, before now, the derivation or state, you pay VAT mostly where your head office is. So we say head office or headquarter effect, and that has been the major challenge that some states don't like. Meanwhile, that people are making comment from whichever side of the divide you belong. I think it's good. Nigeria is not a military environment. You bring it to the table, you don't want people to talk. Over 200 million people will talk. So the comparison that is going on is good for our system. The document will get better after this discussion, once we have our focus on not truncating the system, but making it better. So now, First Bank of this world, I'll be practical, MTN of this world, and the likes, they have their head office in Lagos. And so it could be recorded. Liba brother, you said to everywhere in the country, and the VAT is charged because the head office, the tax manager, is in Lagos. So it's going to pay to the nearest VAT or FRS office. That is convenient for him. But this bill has anticipated that, because VAT, as I said, is a consumption tax. So if you, and I take our mobile phone, for example, it's possible if I move around the country, VAT arising from my transaction, my phone call in a month could be paid in 4 or 5 states. So it is now by virtue of this, and it is called attribution in the bill, wherever that consumption takes place, the activity, the transaction will be attributed to that state. So it is the state that will get the benefit, not Lagos. So looking at this program, making it simple, Lagos in the nearest, the immediate term, we get less because most of these things they are getting because of headquarter effect will go to other states. And what federal government has been getting, or is still getting up to today, 15% will go to be reduced to 10%, while the state will go up. Local government is still remaining at 35%. So that is it. But of the 90% going to the state and the local government, 60% of that is on derivation. And that is where the challenge is. For me, as an institute, we want the political leader to sort themselves out. It's just a segment of the B. You can always agree. You can say, okay, because you can even take other matters, other issues on board and say, okay, because of environmental issues as it is affecting this state, let's consider certain percentage to them. We are together. No state is winning in Nigeria if every other state is not winning. So we must sit down with human face and address that. So we don't have problem. People are talking. People must talk.
Okay.
So that is good for us.
Quickly, we need to start winding down now. But I need to ask you this question. We spoke earlier about the trust issue. Was there any advice given to government? Because if you recall, when Baba Tunde Raji Fashola was governor of Lagos State, even Okada riders used to ask for where the tax offices were to go and pay their taxes because they saw what their money was doing in the state. Any advice to government as to how to encourage people to pay their taxes? Or are they going to be going around chasing tax evaders all the time?
To get to a point whereby the mandatory nature of taxation will be done on all of us, including the leaders. For example, there's what you call lifestyle profiling. You want to have wedding for your daughter, and the best place that can happen is Dubai. And it is not just happening, you are sending invitation out and you are giving a ticket to these people. And your tax payment to the government is 100,500 as the case may be. This system will refill it. Activities on your bank account will show. Information technology is helping. So some of those things we think were hidden will come into the open. And the various states will be the most beneficial way of this bill as we speak.
And we have not discussed the corruption of tax officers, those who are actually supposed to go out and collect, who are busy making deals. If you give me X amount, I'll reduce your tax, your tax burden.
That is a fact. It is not to be denied. But you see, in most cases, like many things happening in the country, people don't report misdeed and wrongdoing. In our institute, we have a panel, investigation panel, and I've been chairman of that panel in the past. Any report that comes to us, we will investigate. And I've seen men, senior people weeping in that panel. The next to it, which I'm currently the chairman, is the disciplinary tribunal, which has the power of high court. So if you see them, report. If you don't report, then we will be damaging the situation further. So we all have responsibility to make the system better.
Okay. Mr. Samuel Agbelui, tax professional and president, Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, who has come to make the tax reform bills clearer to us this morning. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
We wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Sunrise will return in just a moment with another interesting conversation. Do stay with us.
Welcome back. So let's talk about operation and regulation of matters of national identity in Nigeria. Talking about enrollment and issuance, national EID card issuance, identity verification, as well as data harmonization and authentication. So if you have done your NIN, or you haven't, you need to listen. If you're part of those people talking about the cards, the payment, you want to also listen. And we have with us in the studio Dr. Kayode Adegoke, who is the head corporate communications NIMC. That's the National Identity Management Commission. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Yeah, good morning, and it's a pleasure having me and my director here.
Yes, and also we have the Director Card Management Services at NIMC, Dr. Peter Iwebo. Thank you both for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here.
Okay, let me start with Dr. Iwebo. How well would you say we have done so far, with this enrollment and issuance of national identity numbers?
Great. Thank you once more for the opportunity to talk to Nigerians about the National Identity Management Commission. We have done very well from our own assessment. As we speak, we have close to 115 million Nigerians that have been issued a unique identification. And we are growing by the day. We're increasing the pie. And our target is to be able to enroll Nigerians, like our mandates clearly defined it, that our responsibility is to enroll all Nigerians and legal residents and issue them the general multipurpose card. Before the arrival of the current DGCO, Engineer Abisoye Koka Odushote, who has been very wonderful, has worked so hard. In the last 1 year, we have moved the needle. Close to about 15 million new people has enrolled. We're about 100 million as of 2023. By this year, we're about 115 million people have been added to the database, and it's growing by the day. So from that point of view, I can say that we're making good progress. We may not have covered every Nigeria, and what we're doing right now to be able to cover the whole Nigeria is that we're present in all the local governments in Nigeria. We're taking the enrollment to the people. We're moving it closer to the people by going to the ward. We're going to now be at the ward level so that we can be able to capture people. Our statistics has shown that most people in the urban area have been covered. A lot of people that we have not covered are in the very rural areas, and then the children. So we're working with local government agencies to open offices and enrollment centers at the ward level, so that we can be able to capture those that have not been captured. And we're also having a collaboration with schools, the Ministry of Education, the Ministries of Education, to see how we can also use the schools to reach out the school children who have not been enrolled.
Okay.
It's also interesting to know that we're also present outside the country. We have also enrolled a lot of Nigerians who are in our diaspora brothers.
Okay.
Have also been given opportunity to enroll. So we are making progress, and we're hoping to capture all Nigerians very soon.
Dr. Adegoke,
yes,
there was something in the papers this past week about us having to pay to get our identification numbers now. Is that true?
Okay, I think the information is simply incorrect, and I'm going to enlighten Nigerians on it. First and foremost, the most important element of the identification system as being managed by NIMC is the NIN, which is the National Identification Number. And the NIN is free. We have mentioned that at several fora, and we have enlightened our media partners to help us inform Nigerians that NIN issuance is free. Whenever you go to any of our centers, either in the state offices or the local government or through our front-end partners, the issuance, the enrollment and the issuance for the NIN is free. For the card, we have also read a lot of misconception on the pages of some selected newspapers. Now, the misconception in the sense that, quite unlike what we did in time past, this card is driven by NIMSI for and on behalf of the federal government and the private sector. The private sector led by the Central Bank of Nigeria and the NIBS, that's Nigerian Interbank Settlement System, with a local payment system, that's Afrigo. Now, this card has so many use cases. That's why we call it a general multi-purpose card. Just like Director of Card Management Services, Dr. Peter mentioned, it is in the NIMSI Act that outside the issuance of the NIN, NIMSI should also issue the general multi-purpose card. But for every transaction you do in Nigeria, what you need is the NIN. For instance, you want to get your Nigerian passport, they won't ask for your card, they will ask for the NIN. And that's why when you enroll, we give you your NIN slip. When you want to get your driver license, no one will ask you for your card, they will ask for the NIN. You want to register for any services or you want to access government services, it is the NIN. Even for recruitment into the security agencies and other government agencies, it is the NIN they will ask for. But for the card,
in other words,
yes,
you don't need the card.
Basically,
you just need the number.
Basically, yes. However, when you look at the benefit inherent in the card, you have no option but to get the card.
Okay, because so what are the benefits inherent in this card?
Okay, the benefits are unlimited. For instance, the card serves also as a payment card, apart from identification card. You can use the card, yes, to do financial transaction.
How?
Okay, if you look at the card, there's a chip embedded in it. That's why it's been driven by the CBN through the NIPS for the payment app. NIPS, we have opened up so many applications on the card, even for future use cases. For instance, maybe government want to distribute palliative to the less privileged. The card is there for the government to be used for identification purpose. Also, you want to, maybe for ease of convenience, you want to have only one card. You can get the card, and you want to transfer money, you want to withdraw money through the ATM, you can use the card. Yes, you can use the card. Then for physical identification, you can also use the card.
Doctor, please slow down. Does that mean that it will be linked to the banking system? So it doesn't matter which bank I use. If I want to withdraw money, I can use this card to withdraw from my bank.
Absolutely correct. The way the card is going to be issued this time around, quite unlike the past, is that you have to get it through your respective bank. You go to any of your branches or any of your bank branches to apply for it. And also, NIPS is going to make an online portal available for you to apply for the card. Like you rightly said, ma'am, the bank will issue the card for you, so you can use it for financial transactions.
For any of the banks.
Exactly. Exactly correct.
And doctor, so I have my NIN, I have my number.
Okay.
So I can approach my bank and say, here's my number, please issue me a card.
Absolutely correct. In fact, one of the things, like Dr. Peter said, when Engineer Biso Ekoka Odushote, the DGC of NIMSI, came on board last year, today marks a 1-year anniversary in the saddle as the DGC of NIMSI. One of the things she wanted to do, and which she's doing, is that as a mandate for NIMSI to issue the general multipurpose card, this card must be unique and must be something that Nigerians will embrace. And one of the things she did, rightly, is to simplify the process. Unlike the past, when we issue the card will be at our office, we have to call you to come to our office to come and pick it up. This time around, no, she has streamlined it that when you need the card, it is only when you apply for the card. When you apply for the card, once it's ready, you collect it from the bank branch you apply for, and also it can be delivered at your doorstep. Quite unlike what we had in the past. And also the use cases. What she has done is to streamline it in such a way that for both the public and the private sector, the use cases can be applied. Not only federal government, even state government. Currently, we are working with several state governments in the country, and some of them.
So how much will this card be?
Okay, I'll say this. NIMSI is not going to say or determine, say, this is what you pay. No. The bank, because NIMC is not working in silos, so we are working in conjunction with the CBN, NIMS, and the banks. So when we get to that time, all the parties will sit down. NIMC is to provide the foundational identity upon which this card will be layered.
Okay.
So the respective private sector will determine how and when and what they want to.
Sorry, just the same way some of this your front end partners, you know, charge people who come to register for NIN.
In fact, let me come in that case. The front-end partners are not supposed to charge any fee for the enrollment and issuance of the NIN.
But they do.
And one of the things we have done in the last 1 year of Engineer Bisoye administration is we have sanctioned a lot of these FEPs. In fact, some of them, their licenses were withdrawn. And when she came on board, the first thing she did was to do a revalidation of the licenses of all these FEPs to ensure that they conform with the standard, especially the ethical standard of the enrollment processes. So it is basically free. Anyone, we have issued out several notices and several platforms where Nigerians can actually report cases of, and this enrollment they are doing. In fact, the DG mentioned yesterday at the media party that this enrollment we are doing, the FEPs are supposed to be paid. And as of yesterday, I can confirm to you that all the money hold the FEPs since the inception of the operation have been cleared.
Because I was going to say that if you say they shouldn't charge, and someone has opened his office and is running a generator, and you know, but you've cleared that.
In fact, we paid them. Okay, let me quickly add. Sorry, ma. Let me quickly add. When Engineer Bisoye came on board in last year, we were owing these FEPs about 2 years enrollment fee, because they signed an agreement they will be paid XYZ amount of money per enrollment that successfully hit the database. That is the enrollment that generates NIN. And they were not paid for 2 years before she came on board. So she took it upon herself to approach the funding partner, which is the ID4D, that look, these are my partners and I need your support for them to be paid. And she went through the rudiments, did all she needed to do, and all the money being owed them have been cleared. So we are not in
Sorry, please. Sorry, please. Let me quickly, because you said something now that all of the enrollments that successfully hit the database. So sometimes someone has registered, for instance, in Benin City, and you come to Lagos with the hope that the registration there is, you know, already in the database, and you want to use it, and they are telling you it's not recognizable. What would you say happened in that instance?
Okay, once you have enrolled in Benin City, like you said, and you have been issued the NIN, and you come to Lagos to re-enroll, the system is configured in such a way that it will flag it. Because once you enroll, your fingerprint, like Dr. Peter said, once your fingerprint is placed on the fingerprint scanner, the system will scan through to ensure that this person has not enrolled. Once there is a resemblance of that fingerprint, it will flag it.
I'm not even talking about double registration now. I'm talking about the NIN that was issued, for instance, in Imo State. And because I have come to Lagos, and they're telling me they can't find it in the database because I did it with one of your front-end partners.
Okay, let me explain. Now, what we realize is that there's nothing like double enrollment, double registration in NIN. NIN is issued once, and it is rested upon the death of the NIN holder. Now, from the front-end partners, yes, there could be one or two issues. For instance, you might want to do what we call bypass. Some of them might have gone to the place to do a bypass enrollment. The bypass enrollment simply means that the fingerprints were not captured. We don't know the purpose. It could be for ulterior or for whatever nefarious activity. The system will flag it. So when they come to Lagos to get it, the system will say, no, you have not enrolled. Because enrollment is not only the demographic factor, but also the biometrics, which includes the iris, the face, and the fingerprints. And that is why for us, you cannot cheat the system. The system will flag it.
Now, Dr. Ubu, the card, you say, can be used to withdraw money and to make payments.
Exactly.
Are the banks not kicking against that? Because if I have an account in, say, 3 different banks now, I would naturally carry 3 different cards. But when this comes into operation, I can use that one card to withdraw from my 3 bank accounts. Is that correct?
Not exactly, but let me explain.
Please explain.
Yeah, it is correct that the card will be enabled for payment. Yeah. The current card, where it's a 3-in-1 valued card, it enables you to have evidential identification to be able to say, this is who I am, particularly for very remote areas where they do not have any means of identity. Unlike some of us here who probably have an international passport, whatever license, a lot of Nigerians do not have any. So it will solve that problem. Second one is that it also enables us to financially include some of these people who have been financially excluded. And the second part of the usage is the use case is that, like you rightly mentioned, the card enables you to participate in financial services, which means you can do exactly what your debit card can currently do for you. Withdraw money, make payments on the web, transfer money, all of them can be done. Now, in terms of are the bank kicking against it, the banks, we're working with them and we're creating value for them. We're bringing to them almost over 100 million possible customers who they can bank with, who they can have relations with, and issue these cards. Two is that the banks are already issuing a debit card. What we're also adding to it is additional value to the debit card they are issuing. And the way it's designed is that you can only have, because it's a national ID card, you can only have the card from one bank. You have to decide which of your banks do you want to use for your national ID. And once you have to make that choice, you also have, it's flexible. You can also decide 2 days after, I no longer want this bank. I want to go another bank. You also cancel and another bank will issue to you. Now, the other bit of it which I also want to emphasize is like, we're not just focusing on issuing this card through the banks. We realize the fact that a lot of Nigerians do not really go to bank, do not have a bank account, particularly the vulnerable, the people that the government is trying to intervene to help. They do not have a banking relationship. So we have another program that we call Government to People Payment Card, which enables the government through those agencies that are intervening in those areas to issue this card to these people as part of that program. So if I have a card that I want to issue to farmers in Ilaje, I probably will gather the farmers, the agency of government, be it Ministry of Intervention, be it whatever agency of government that is responsible for providing that palliative. As part of delivering this palliative, we arrange to issue this card to them, so they are not expected to now pay for that card. Because the program that is providing support to them, we arrange for them to be able to have this card. And that card enables them to enjoy different services. It's not just to withdraw money. The card also enables the government to be able to provide a very secure means of administering their support. It has wallets, it enables us to do grants. For example, if you are doing a grant to agriculture, the wallet defined for agriculture will be defined so that that wallet will only be used for that purpose which is defined for. So if I'm giving money for people to buy fertilizer, we are not giving them cash. You are giving them token. You are giving them numbers with which they can use to assess that agriculture. So that you don't give the person money to buy fertilizer and the person decides to use that to go and buy bicycle or buy whatever. So you are sure that that money that you are intervening for a particular sector to help the sector is for that purpose. Yes. So that's one of the things. So therefore, there are two ways we are approaching this, and it's based on our history. When the current DGCO resumed, what she did as a very smart lady is to analyze the problem we have had in the past in terms of issuing these cards. One of those problems was distribution. One of them was acceptance and pickup. One of them was also the funding to be able to produce those cards. So it is in addressing this issue, and that's the reason why we are now working with the private sector. We're working with the bank through NIPS and CBN. We're working with MDAs who are also intervening and relating with the people to be able to use that to issue those cards. So distribution is in a way reduced because you can walk into any bank. You can make your choice. When you want to make a choice on the online portal, you can decide the bank you want. You can decide the branch you want to pick it. You can decide if you want to go there to pick it yourself or you want them to deliver. It's a choice for you to make. When you make all those choices, the card will be produced and will be delivered based on what you have selected.
Are cards being produced at the moment?
Yes, we have the cards being produced, but we are doing some security check because it's a security card. It has a lot of security features. We have the sample card, test card have been produced. So in the next one or 2 months, we want to use that to do all those end-to-end testing to be sure that everything that is required in that card is in place, and then we'll begin to roll it out to the public.
Okay. How does one get a NIN now?
Okay, simple. All you need to do is to go to a NIN enrollment center, either in the local government, the state office, or at any of our front-end partners.
Must I go somewhere?
Okay. Currently,
can't I do something online?
Can I just pick that one up? You see, what the very hardworking Gigi has also come up with that. She came up with self-enrollment portals where you don't necessarily need to visit our
go anywhere.
One of the things we realize that a lot of people who come, the crowd that come to our office are coming not even for fresh enrollment. Some of them are coming for modification. Oh, my address has changed. I got married. My date of birth. Yeah. So she's brought a self-modification portal where people can, through AI, which is an AI-enabled system that enables you to initiate and conclude those modifications without necessarily coming to our office. Yeah. And however, we are like I explained earlier on, we're not waiting for people to come to us. We're trying to go to them, which is the reason why we're going to the world. We're partnering with the schools to go to the secondary schools to be able to enroll people. There's another partnership we've had, which has been consummated and announced to the public, is that before now, when a child is born, you have to wait for a while to bring the child to an enrollment center for the person to be enrolled. What we have also come up with is like through partnership with Nigerian Population Commission, that at birth, as they are issuing the birth certificates, a NIN is also generated, so that people don't have to wait to come to our office to get the NIN. So we are working towards making life easy and smart for Nigerians through the NIN and also with the card.
Okay. So where is the portal that we go to now to get a NIN?
Okay. In addition to what Dr. Peter said.
I want the portal.
Okay, the portal. No. The portal we have now that is working optimally is the portal for the modification. Now, if you have been issued a NIN and you want to modify your probably date of birth, name, maybe for those who were not married before, addresses, phone number. That portal is what is working optimally and actively now.
So how do I go about it?
Okay, the portal is self-service modification at nimsi.gov.ng.
Self-service
modification at nimsi. No, sorry, self-service modification.nimsi. self-service.nimsi.gov.ng. Self-service modification.nimsi.gov.ng.
So now, if there are any changes you want to make regarding the information on your NIN card or regarding your NIN.
Yes, you don't need to physically go to our office. Like what was obtainable in time past.
Yes.
All you need to do is to visit this portal.
Self-service modification.nimsi.gov.ng.
Once you click,
just go there and you'll be able to make any amendments that you want to make.
Exactly. But what it requires is, first and foremost, it will ask you for your NIN. And also you will do a capture, it will capture your face to ensure that you are actually the person
who you say you are.
It's an AI-enabled portal. And like you said, we're also coming up with what you have said, but it's in the pipeline, it's in the test stage. We are testing it to be sure that once we come out with it, we won't have issues. So the DG, like we said earlier, she's working on so many fronts. We've solved the issue of not visiting our centers for modification. From the comfort of your homes and offices, you can modify it. We are also working on that concept of enrolling at the comfort of your homes and offices.
Okay.
That portal is going through what we call the UAT, User Acceptance Test stage now.
Okay.
So that when it comes out, you won't have to be going to our centers. But for now, we have the one for modification working optimally.
Okay. So I want to do I have gone to the modification portal. I have filled in my information.
Yes.
How long will it take for me to get confirmation that all I have input
is
now effective?
Within 24 hours. It will ask for your email address Then once you put your email, immediately after you submit, you will receive a notification that this has been submitted to NIMSI, and you get like a receipt, what we call a transaction ID slip in your email. Then within 24 hours, you will get a response that your modification for so has been effected. So kindly go ahead with your transaction.
For 24
hours.
Yeah. For some Nigerians, you know, once you do a registration, you've moved on.
Okay.
Speak to the importance of, you know, this modification where it is needed. Speak to that importance.
Okay, the importance is, for instance, we have harmonized, NIMSI has harmonized our data with all existing government agencies that are involved in data capturing. So what it means is that, for instance, if
my house address has changed.
It changed. I even want to use, like, let's say the Nigerian Immigration Service, the Nigerian passport. Maybe before, on the passport, your surname was maybe Adegoke Feyikemi. But now you have been married. So in your NIN slip, in your NIN, your surname is now Iwebu Feyikemi. When you want to get your passport, you need to update your, initially when you were enrolled for NIMSI, sorry, it was Adegoke Feyikemi, but now you are married. All you need to do is to go to that portal and change it to that Adegoke. Then maybe you have moved your address from maybe Sherry North 1 to maybe Magodo.
Yes.
In that case, you have to go to office to change, sorry, you have to go to the portal to change that.
Because if you drop the NIN, I think, and the passport office goes for your NIN, and they see a
mismatch. Yes, that's why you need to update. That's why the essence of that portal. So, for instance, when you get to the portal and they say, oh, what you have in NIN is different from what you have here, you don't need to rush to our office. You can, at that same place,
and
you can.
Then the names, because I think someone was telling me that, okay. So her name is, for instance, Sandra Osinachi Obohai. And then she puts it, Osinachi Sandra Obohai, and it's still the same three names, but the arrangements.
Correct.
How important is that?
You have to rearrange it using the self-portal modification, the self-service modification portal. You are rearranging it to conform with the one you have with the Nigerian immigration. Because if it's not, the passport will not be issued to you. So that's why we are telling Nigerians that NIMSI has harmonized, as part of our mandate, to harmonize our data with all government agencies. We have done that. So even for the road safety, you want to get your driver license. If there's any mismatch, it will not be issued. So you have to use the self-service notification portal.
Dr. Iwebu, you are all, I mean, the NIMSI belongs to the same ministry as the Immigration Service.
Yes,
am I correct?
Exactly.
So, if I have gone through all this for my NIN, why then do I need to go for capture again at the passport office when I want a passport? It's the same ministry.
And since you said the harmonization has happened,
you have my fingerprint, you have my photograph, which is what they need at the passport office as well. You already have it.
Okay, I think you are right, madam. To start with, what we are doing, which is part of our mandate, is to harmonize our identity information across the country. I should only be one Peter Iwebu. So therefore, if I'm one Peter Iwebu, it means that if I go to any place that requires me to be identified, it's the same Peter Iwebu that should be seen. What we just said is what we're working on to achieve that full harmonization in such a way that the Immigration Service does not necessarily need to recapture your biometric. But because your biometric remains your biometric. So it serves as an additional information because we provide foundation identity. The agencies provide functional identity for their use. So once we are provided the foundation identity, which includes your biometric, your picture, your name, and that. If that's sufficient for them to carry out their functional duties, they are not meant to capture anything. But they serve as additional information that is required for them to do their work. They cannot capture those ones. We're harmonizing already with immigration. We'll get to that point where all you need to supply to immigration is your NIN. They can pull other details. We're harmonizing with even in the banking industry that if you want to open a banking account today, you don't necessarily need to go there and you need to be captured afresh. They will just take your NIN, pull your details, and be able to continue. What that is helping us is also to help us fight some level of security, so that who you are at every point in time.
I was going to say this too, because when we talk about insecurity, we talk about people who kidnap and, they still have some form of contact with using their phones, and they still are not able, in some cases, to be traced. So how is, this identification, verification, helping in any way?
Okay. As we speak, the security agencies are using a database for their tracking, for their investigations and whatever. And if you recall too, there was a mandate that every telephone number must be linked to the NIN. All is in an attempt to tie everybody around so that anywhere you go, we can trace you and say who you are. But what has happened is that there are a lot of people who have multiple phone numbers. And you just mentioned one example about somebody going to a front-end processor, a front-end partner to go and do enrollment. What you find out is that some of those front-end partners, maybe out of, because they are being paid by number of successful NIN, they are in a hurry to see how they can generate as much as possible. We have a program that allows you to enroll amputee that doesn't have fingerprint. So if you go there, they'll say, oh, don't worry about your fingerprint, I will enroll you as an amputee. So what now happens is that when you come to do your verification, like the guy who enrolled in Benin, perhaps they have bypassed the biometric. So when you now come to do verification and you put your biometric and say it does not exist, because the person that enrolled in Benin does not have a fingerprint. Yeah. So what we have found out that a lot of these FAP are not following the procedure that they have been trained with. So they capture people with incomplete information. And the way.
But I thought that if that happens, there is something that will flag it on your own system.
Yeah, it will flag it because amputee is normal, that people can be amputee. So if I have enrolled someone who's not an amputee as an amputee, it's only if that person appears to do something else that we cannot confirm that the person is not truly an amputee, and then we'll block it. So and that's how it's possible for someone to have enrolled and he comes back and say my NIN is not working because there's a manipulation, let me put it in quote, in the verification process, which is what we are emphasizing. Our monitoring and system has been enhanced to ensure that all these FEP, some of them are sanctioned, some have been withdrawn, their licenses withdrawn, to ensure that they're following the right thing to do. So I think that's part of the thing. And then the other bit of it you also find is that when people, because our act allows us to register children and attach them to the NIN of their parents, the biometric for children doesn't really mature. It's not matured as at the time you're capturing them.
Particularly now that you say you want to do for babies.
For babies. So what has happened therefore is that the mandate is that when you are 16 years and above, when we think that your biometric has actually matured, you are meant to come back to do validation. Some of the things I've also discovered is that people don't come back to do that validation. They have grown. They were enrolled at 13, they are 21 now, and they continue to use those NIN. And then when you use it, because the biometric is not matured, you will not be able to.
Shouldn't there be a check at your own end for instance, you register the baby, you know that in 16 years it's supposed to come back to do,
Yeah, the check exists because at 16 the system flagged it up and will reach out to the people to say but you need to come and do the upgrade to upgrade your biometric.
Otherwise
it's blocked. So what we do now is that if you give you sufficient time to come back, if you don't come back, the NIN is suspended. Okay. And a lot of people now are now forced to come back because they can no longer transact with their NIN. They come back.
All right. Thank you so much.
I think in addition, let me state this quickly.
Very quickly.
Quickly, I must commend our dear President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR, for the effective working relationship between NIMC and the security agencies. In the last 1 year of his administration, a lot have been done using the NIN. For security matters, most of them are not public. You have to. But let me state this on here. A lot has happened.
And a lot more needs to be done.
Yes,
right.
We will still do
All right. Thank you so much, Head Corporate Communications at NIMC, Dr. Kayode Adegoke, and the Director Card Management Services, NIMC, Dr. Peter Iwegbu. Thank you both for being on the show this morning.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here today.
Okay, we'll be back in just a moment, and we'll still have more for you. Do stay with us.
COP, which stands for Conference of Parties, is the series of formal meetings and conferences where governments assess global efforts to advance the Paris Agreement and the Convention, and also limit global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade as informed by the latest science. Well, I'm sure you're aware that COP29, otherwise known as COP29, has been going on in Baku, Azerbaijan, and it's been almost 2 weeks now since it's been going. To tell us more about all this, we have a panel, two of whom are joining us virtually. But let me first introduce the professor, who is an environment expert, who is with us in the studio in Lagos, Professor Emmanuel Oladipo.
Good morning.
And thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Of course, we don't talk environment and stuff like that without talking to our people at the Nigerian Conservation Foundation. We have the director with us this morning, Mr. Joseph Onoja.
Thank you very much for having me, man.
Thank you. And joining us from far away Baku is Dr. Nkiruka Maduekwe, who is Director General and CEO, National Council on Climate Change.
Thank you for having me here. Good morning, everyone.
Is it cold in Baku?
Very cold. They've switched off the heating place.
You must be looking forward to coming home.
100%.
Let me start with the professor. Prof, this conference is called the COP of Finance. Why?
Well, thank you very much. I think for Nigerians to really appreciate what is going on, let me spend about 1 minute to provide this very solid foundation, because a lot of news about these COPs go on in Nigeria and they seem to misrepresent what is happening there. Briefly, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change was negotiated in 1992 June in Rio, and one of the 3 major conventions, biodiversity and desertification included. And one of the decisions of this convention is that every year all nations will be meeting in what we call the conference, not Congress, conference of parties, to assess what progress we are making, what we need to do, and how do we do about it, to be sure that the impact of the impending, I wouldn't say climate change, impending climate variability and climate change.
Are we not there already?
It's a transition.
Okay.
If let the Nigerians get it clear, if climate change really, it means there will be no rain in Lagos in June, July, August. There will be rain in the north. So that's the. But we are in a transition period of climatic variability, marked climatic variability, which is due to mainly due to human activities. Not only human activities, but mainly due to human activities of releasing a lot of these gases that warm the air consistently. As a result of that agreement, every year since 1994, when the convention came into effect, nations have been meeting, except during the COVID period of 2019, I think. And one of the things that I've seen, I used to lead the Nigerian delegation for adaptation between 2009 and 2018. I decided not to be going again for a number of reasons. But clearly what this one says is that you are going as an equal partner. We all started as scientists in climate change. We all started by saying it is the developed nations that caused the changes by pumping a lot of CO2 into the atmosphere. Gradually, they succeeded in persuading us that we all have a role to play. And the Paris Agreement is emphasizing that particular collective agreement, not the other one that we used to say the developed nations should be the one responsible and they should do everything. Since that one had come on, a lot of things are taking shape. One area I want Nigerians to understand is that when you are going for this negotiation, and a lot of stories go out that we have 1,000 Nigerians, they are not delegates. Only very few Nigerians go as delegates of government.
Okay.
Very few. For adaptation that I used to lead, maybe we only about 4 or 5. But as a Nigerian, even you, as a Nigerian, you may want to go and see what is going on in COP. You will be admitted, but you'll be an observer.
Okay.
You cannot go and negotiate. And I'm really happy that my sister Ayo is always there. He's always covering the thing very well. But it's not a delegate.
Okay.
He cannot negotiate on behalf of Nigeria. So there are very few people that do the negotiation.
People like Dr. Maduekwe.
People like Dr. Madueke, after the minister that is leading the delegation, she's next.
Okay.
So everything that we need to do, she will be the one delegating. Oladipo, you go to this meeting.
Okay.
Muhammad, go to that meeting and not the rest. So everything. So once we have that one through, we understand it better now.
Okay.
So all those 1,000, 10,000, no. But you'll be registered as a Nigerian. So let's clarify that one.
Dr. Maduekwe, how have the negotiations been this year? Have we made any progress?
Right. That is the $1.3 trillion question. We came into this COP, which is the finance COP, to clarify on the new collective quantitative goals, because that stemmed out of Copenhagen, where we had agreed that the countries, the developed countries, had agreed that they were going to give us $100 billion till 2020. So the NCQG was going to be negotiated this year so that they can amplify this commitment that they had made. But as it were, we are still at that space where currently what it is we are seeing at the text is $250 billion per year, which it's... sorry to say, it's I don't want to use any word that shouldn't be said, but it's a huge disappointment. Taking consideration that our goals, our adaptation goals, our NDCs, we have tabulated it at ranging from 5.8 to 5.6 trillion dollars. That's what it is we need to be able to implement our NDCs. And for adaptation, we've raised it up to approximately 400 plus USD per year. And they are committing to just give $250 billion per year. And they're saying that it's going to be shared regionally, equitably. I'm sorry if I'm sounding this way, but we've been here since yesterday night trying to understand, are we going to have a plenary or not? I don't know if this is not the question you asked, but we had the smackdown of it. And checking to see what are we going to go home with. What the position we've put forward, is it going to be taken? One of the first things that has just happened as we sat down here waiting for this interview is that as at yesterday night, the text they had sent was one of the key things they said was they were inviting developing parties to contribute to the finance. But thank God, the text we have just seen now while we're waiting says that they're encouraging parties. Now the question is encouraging and inviting. Which one is stronger? You don't want a situation whereby down the line, the next COP are going to see that they have changed the common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities, which is clearly provided for in the convention. You don't want that change because we're a developing country straight from the convention, like Prof has said is the basis for all this negotiation that we're doing. And as Nigeria, as Africa, we come here to say we are developing countries, and our differentiated, respected capabilities should be taken into consideration if you're going to put an amount to the finance. And what kind of finance are you giving us? You know, and this is not what we're seeing, and it's not heartwarming at all.
So, Dr. Onoja, Nigeria just signed the first direct access accreditation agreement. Can you talk us through exactly what that means?
I think that may be the question that the government may be more to talk about.
So I should answer?
Yes, please go ahead, because that's a government question. So I'll end you. So government, please go ahead.
Okay, I'm happy to, and I'm really excited to come in and speak on that, because, whoa, that's the only exciting thing I can say. And for years, so just to explain, the GCF, Green Climate Fund, is one of the financing mechanisms that is identified as part of the convention, as part of the financial mechanisms that countries can access finance from. So that's one of it. For years, Nigeria has not really taken a space in that. And DBN is the first Nigerian direct access entity. Now, what this means is that now as a country, we have the ability to say what it is we want with our climate finance and speak to Nigeria's priorities, not the priorities of other MDBs, but our own priority. But however, I want to caution that the access that, or rather what DBN has is with regards to, it doesn't cover grants yet. So it's going to be a concessional finance, basically, concessional funding, but not grants yet. So that's where we are. But that is a huge plus, and that is a really huge milestone for us as a country. Because if we are going to all these conversations about finance that we're talking about, one of the ways we are missing out of it is not having an accredited entity. And having DBN, Development Bank of Nigeria, being accredited is the first step to Nigeria understanding that she needs to set that mechanism in place and putting Nigeria where she needs to be. So that's a plus for us as a country.
Okay, Mr. Onoja, she's talked about priorities. What would you say as a nation our priorities should be when it comes to these climate change issues?
Okay, so I'm going to talk as a nation, and I'm also going to talk about the globe, because we as the nature-based nature conservation organizations, what we want to see is nature being put in whatever thing we are going to do with climate, because we talk about Prof rightly pointed out about what they call the Rio Trio. That is the three Rio conventions, the synergy that should come together so that at the end of the day, what we are doing will not impact negatively on the other one. Because when you talk about climate change, you talk about desertification, you talk about biodiversity loss, they all stem from kind of the same challenge. So for us to be able to really solve that issues, they must come together. And that is where our concern lies, and that should be our priority, where whatever we are doing will not have a negative effect on the other one. That is why we want nature to be put into climate finance, to be put into our NDCs, to be put into our energy transition, the just energy transition that we're talking about, and all of that. So that is a priority, not just for Nigeria, but for the globe. And that is what we as NCF and our other partners are pushing. Because at the end of the day, nature is at the heart of everything that we do. Economics and ecology or ecosystem come from the same root word of echo. And we need, without a healthy ecosystem, there won't be a healthy economy.
That's a good one.
Prof, global climate activists and leaders like Ban Ki-moon have said that the COP needs to be reformed. What kind of reform do you think he's talking about?
All right, I think I cannot but agree more with him. One of the reasons why I don't really bother to go more since 2019 is because the whole structure is such that it's very, very complex and very difficult for developing nations to be able to get through many of these things. As I said earlier, I want to use the opportunity to clarify a lot of things. Many people believe that when you go for this negotiation, you just go and say, this is what Nigeria wants. No, it doesn't operate that way. These negotiations are
particularly since you're asking for money behind what you're asking for.
These negotiations are really done on what we call block basis. We have the European Union, which is a block on its own. Mm-hmm. We have the umbrella group. It's another block of US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and others. We have the G77 and China, which is a very complicated organization of poor countries like Nigeria and China together.
How can Nigeria and China be in the same block?
Oh, yes. Because China used to be regarded as a developing country.
Used to be.
Well, I still say the developing country because of one thing or the other. We have what we call the Coalition of Rainforest Group. We have the Environmental Integrity Group. We have the Least Developed Countries Group. We have the...
Are we in that group?
That's where the challenge is. We have the Latin American and Caribbean Group. We have another group of small islands. Like maybe Equatorial Guinea may be one of those, that is a small island that believes it can be wiped away by sea level rise due to climate warming and all the rest. Now, every group now, we take stand on issues and come to the table. It's a negotiation. And the negotiation is so funny that no matter how much you do, like I don't know whether they finished today, but let's say by this time they've reached an agreement and they now go to a plenary to get it stamped. And Fiji, which is maybe less than 1 million people, say, no, I don't agree. That is it. That is it. Everything you've done for 2 weeks is gone. You have to start afresh and to hope for the next COP to be able to do anything meaningful. And once EU and the umbrella group take a stand, those are the ones that have the
money,
the muscle. So it becomes extremely difficult to really get the type of thing that developing nations will be looking for. So the type of reform that may be there, I'm not too sure of what it will be exactly, but I think it has to be in such a way that all sides may have to shift here and there. If developing nations are just talking about money always, it may not work that way. The developed nations should not also see developing nations as beggars, but that this is a collective responsibility. A collective responsibility, but where every nation or every region will have their own responses based on their capacity and their contribution. Africa, for instance, we are contributing only about 3% of the so-called greenhouse gases. But they will tell us that, oh, by the time you remove all your logging and deforestation and, poor management of land and everything, a lot of emissions are coming from land use. By the time you add that one, so you will not be emitting.
So in another word, we are also culpable.
Exactly. So, and this is what the Paris, if you heard the word that Nkirika mentioned, the Council DG, collective. We are talking about new collective quantified goal. The word collective means what? All of us are responsible. So if therefore the developing nations are asking for $1.2 trillion between now and 2030, and the EU and the other group are saying we can maybe go to about 250 billion. You see the gap already. Now, how do you get the people to understand each other in that regard? And that's where the whole North became very difficult last night, and I don't know whether they have been able to untie it enough. Maybe Dr. Nkruka will be able to
Nkruka, can you tell us more about that? What did you achieve since last night?
Well, that's what I'm saying. We're actually in the middle of it. That's what I was explaining early on, that we got the text we've just recently received has made an adjustment with regards to from telling us, inviting us, to now encouraging the developing countries. So, but it hasn't changed its position with regards to the 250 billion. So what we are saying as an African bloc and G77 is that you have to make more effort. We're not seeing that on the part of the developed countries. The developing countries are not saying we are not going to take up our own side of the ship. We're not going to row our own part. No. But what the developing countries are saying, please, can you understand that first and foremost, we are paying a debt we never owed? We didn't cause this, because even the convention is very clear that compared to the prehistoric and current emissions that the developed countries own is high. And also the convention recognized that in our own development, we are going to do a bit of emission. But even as it were, till today, in current terms, developing countries' emission still compared to developed countries is not even the same. It's not at the same level.
Yeah.
So what we're simply saying as developing countries is, listen, we're going to do our own bit. You're telling us to have ambitious NDCs, but you're not providing the financial mechanism. You're not providing the financial instruments. You're giving us loans. You're giving us debts. You're not giving us concessional finance. You're not giving us grants. We're talking about adaptation. And what we're saying is that the reason why we're highly vulnerable to the impact of climate change is because we have no adaptive capacity. So we need to build our adaptive capacity. And to be able to do that, we need funds. And these guys they're not shifting grounds at all. And that's where we are. And like Prof said, if one country says, I no agree, now so it go take B. Since yesterday night, we have been here. We're supposed to have had the plenary by 10 a.m. They've moved it. We're not so sure to maybe 5 p.m. But the truth is, we are here.
Okay.
And is a tactics that they do. They do these taxes to ensure that you get tired, you leave, and by the time they make this decision midnight, nobody is there to say no. But I think Africans have taken a different stance. We're here because this concerns us.
Okay. We talked earlier about the direct access accreditation agreement. Another one is the agreement on carbon markets. Is this good for Nigeria?
So what these negotiations did was to handle a number of things. For us as the African group of negotiations, we're looking at authorization. We're looking at additionalities. So those areas, some of the things we asked for were addressed. Some of the things we asked for were not addressed. But for us, it doesn't take, how will I put it now? It's important, but remember that carbon market is not climate finance. There are two different things. It's a way you can, of course, there's a potential for us to benefit from that as a country. That's another means of non-oil revenue for us. But it is not climate finance. These two things should not be mistaken. So I just want to say that, yes, that there are aspects that have been, aspects that we have negotiated for that has shown in the text as it is. We're still expecting more text. The one for NCQG has just come up. We're still expecting more. So I won't be able to touch on those ones. I'm able to touch on NCQG because I just saw it now before we joined the interview.
Okay. Mr. Onoja, you are more for conservation. In all of this, how do you think we should move on?
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, we won't make much progress if we don't put nature in it. For instance, we are talking about the just transition. How are we going to do all of these without destroying nature? And we're going to get some rare earth metals. Where are we going to source these rare earth metals from? It so happens that some of these rare earth metals occur where there are the areas of high biodiversity. And how are we going to sustainably get these things without destroying nature? And that is why we are saying that we should all come together and see how we'll be able to work out all of these solutions without necessarily destroying the other part of it. And that is where, I mean, that is our concern. I just mentioned about the rare earth metals. And even if I take solar panels, for instance, if we want to place solar panels, are we going to destroy forests to be able to place them? So, and that is why we are with our partners, we've come up with some tools that will be able to help that. We have tools like avian sensitive mapping tools. We have what we call the IBAT, Integrated Biodiversity Assessment tools, that will be able to help in all of these things so that you place your infrastructure where it will not have negative effects on biodiversity and nature. Because at the end of the day, nature-based solutions are one of the areas that has really been it's a proven mechanism or a proven way for us to be able to combat all of these issues of climate change that we are talking about. And that is where our concern is, and that's why we are following this very closely. And even in the finance mechanisms, we are ensuring that because sometimes you can just say, oh, you want to talk about finances, but if you don't put nature at the heart of it, once you get the money, you just run wild and then destroy nature in that regard. And that's what our major concern is.
Now, Prof, 1.3 trillion, 250 billion, they are miles apart. How hopeful are you that developing countries are going to get what they're asking for, or anything near it?
All right, let me briefly tell you a story that may tell you what may happen. And I will not be surprised by this time. Tomorrow is Sunday. Yeah, maybe by Sunday morning, around 2 or 3 a.m., you hear an announcement of a breakthrough.
Why a.m.?
Will you be tired? by that time, but whatever comes your way, you have to go home. In 2009, one of the most intriguing negotiations in Copenhagen, we were negotiating all kinds of things. No road forward. When they saw that the North was really tying and becoming naughtier than ever before, all of a sudden, President Obama showed up. And that announcement came, bam. We'll be willing to give $100 billion per year till 2030 over a period of time. We all clapped. Till today, I don't think America contributed up to $40 billion. That's something that was supposed to be $100 billion
every year.
So it's one thing to ask for a certain amount. It's another thing for a particular amount to be said,
exactly,
and then getting the actual.
I wouldn't be surprised, because I started hearing figures like 600 billion by yesterday evening. So we may end up with about 600 billion, because everybody be tired, and it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
You might end up with that one. But what is important, and what Nigeria needs to do as well, maybe run out of time now, is this. Climate change, as climate change on its own, it doesn't make any sense. Let us see climate change as a development issue. One of the things we are not doing right is that we cannot even quantify how much of our national resources we are really using to tackle the challenge. And I think this is where we are missing the point. As you mentioned, for instance, during the conservation thing that I had Dr. Onoja about, if we're able to take the coastal region, for instance, and emphasize the need for the conservation of our mangrove forest. These are the buffers that God created to make sure that even if the sea level is rising, we have plants that can absorb the salt and everything. We not allow it to destroy. But we have cleared most of this. Where they are not cleared, they are polluted by oil and all the rest. So Nigeria needs to take climate change as a development challenge. Lagos State has to take climate change as a development challenge. Don't bother about whether you are going to get billions of dollars or there. Will you wait till Lagos is flooded completely and you can't move anymore? The answer is no. what do we need to do? We already know now that based on all projections, the temperature will continue, even if we stop green gas emission now, which is not possible. What is already in the system will continue to make this atmospheric system crazy. So we'll still be getting occasional, very heavy storms that will be leading to flooding. So Lagos should prepare itself, for instance, that every year all the states along the coast, there will be flooding. Whether it happens or not, it's a precaution. There will be flooding. What do we need to do? And how do we reduce its impact? If we address it from that point of view, then we say, okay, how much money am I giving Minister of Environment, Minister of Water Resources, Minister of Coastal Management, whatever the ministries are, to work towards reducing the impact of flood in Lagos? That type of money, you put it on the table. When we are not discussing, Lagos comes up and say, for my budget of 2025, I'm putting down 500 billion naira towards mitigating flood, reducing the drainage problem we have in this area, making sure that my agriculture, even in the remaining land that's available, is not destroyed by heavy rainfall, making sure that the people in the urban environment are not completely flooded away, making sure that ABC happen. That type of money, by the time Lagos does that, Ondo does it, Kano does it, all the 36 states are able to show every year that this is the amount of money we are using to reduce, like the type of drought that happened in the north central part this year. A lot of agricultural land got burnt off completely because of the extended.
It's November and it's still raining.
Because it didn't rain when it was supposed to rain the right time. That's the type of variability we are talking about. But if the people, the states are now saying, because of this, we recognize that drought may be a problem or flood may be a problem, this is what we are doing to make our agriculture resilient to the impact of climate change. This is the type of thing we are putting together. All such money, by the time you put it for the 36 states, Nigeria will be seen to be spending a lot of money on adapting. We are not talking about adapting
inward.
Exactly.
What we can do, because the people that we are going to meet and having these meetings with, sometimes they have their own preconceived arrangement.
Not only that, I mean, the road that was washed away in Jigawa as a result of the heavy floods, unexpected heavy floods that happened as a result of the warming of the atmosphere that dumped a lot of water there. Are they coming to repair the road for us?
No. Dr. Madwekwe,
yes.
We're winding down now. So what are your expectations at the end of the day?
Yeah, thank you so much. I just permit me to just address a number of things that have been raised.
We don't have time.
Yes, I'll be very
Except
fast.
You can do that in a minute.
I'll try. My minute is gone. But just wanted to say that the law already has nature-based solutions, and it's very firm that nature-based solutions is one of the things Nigeria is looking to address our climate change actions. So the issues that Dr. Onoja raised is there. Concerning what the issues that Professor raised, the Act also has a climate change fund. With the climate change funds, we're able to attract that finance that we need. And I'm also using this opportunity to call out to states to please adopt the climate change law. Now, what this happens is that if every state, for instance, imagine if a state like Lagos State had a climate change fund. Now, with that climate change fund, Lagos State is able to attract finance from multilateral funding, attract finance. Of course, when the national state legislative puts in money there, it's very clear that they're putting in money into climate change fund. Climate change fund will help address adaptation and mitigation issue. Climate change fund will also help us as a country to know which projects, to say this is how much Nigeria as an entity is putting to address climate change fund. We're not going to be questioning that amount anymore. So what are the steps we're taking as a secretariat out of this COP29? One, the need to synergize our existing NDC implementation framework. This says what our costing for is with all the priorities areas. Number two, the energy transition plan, which also says the costing for energy transition. Number three, the net zero plan as well, to converge everything together so that, and including the intergovernmental, another finance one again, sorry, but to convert all these things together and so that Nigeria can have one strategic finance plan, climate change finance plan. Now, let me tell you what this will do. What this will do to the international community is that Nigeria is ready for business, because Nigeria has been able to outline her bankable pipeline of projects. and has been able to cost that from adaptation to mitigation and say, this is how much we need to identify to help us to build that resilience that Prof was talking about, to help us to also drive our just and equitable transition. So, in 1 minute.
No, you took 1 minute, 15 seconds.
Thank you very much for coming to tell us about COP29 and coming to tell us about climate change in general. That was Dr. Nkiru Kamadu-Ekwe, Director General and CEO, National Council on Climate Change, who joined us from Baku, Azerbaijan. And we also had Dr. Joseph Onoja, Director General, Nigerian Conservation Foundation. He also joined us virtually. And then we had Professor Emmanuel Oladipo, who was with us in the studio. He's an environment expert. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And you in Baku, have a safe trip back. And Dr. Onoja, welcome back from Baku.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you for staying with us. We shall be right back after this short break with the lifestyle segment. Don't go away.
Fatherhood. That picture says it all. Our next conversation is on the importance of addressing mental health within the context of fatherhood. You know, fathers, like everyone else, you know, they have their own emotions, and but a lot of the times the focus is on the women, the women and the children. But this morning we are focusing on fathers, and we have in the house a family therapist, Amina Yunus Ali. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
It's an amazing time. Thank you for having me once again.
So let's focus on the men. They always accuse women of Mother's Day, International Women's Day, but let's focus on them. Of course, just a few days ago, it was International Men's Day. So let's put the focus on them and in the context of fatherhood.
Yeah, so like somebody said, I read someone's status a couple of days back, and she was like, "Were men expecting us to celebrate them?" We have always been the one hyping our own Women's Day, Girl Child Day, and all that. But I think in the context of understanding fatherhood and mental health, and there's so many unspoken burdens that fathers bear, it would be nice to once in a while to help them understand that we do care about them as well. And I think talking about their affect when it comes to how they present themselves in fatherhood is an important part of making a whole family. We cannot dismiss their presence when it comes to how they show up for the children, how they show up even for the mothers themselves, and how that would greatly impact the overall well-being of the family. But it's also important for us to once in a while shine the light on them as humans, as individuals.
Particularly in our own climb, you hear that, be a man up, and
suck it up.
You're not supposed to show emotions, but
you see, I think that's one of the things that is making this idea of a whole parenting difficult to grasp for so many men, because they've watched years and years, generations over generations. My grandfather did it this way, my father did it this way, and it had to be man up, hide your emotions, take care of yourself privately without letting your partner know what's going on and all that. So it's been difficult for them to come up into the space of vulnerability and sharing and compassion and saying, oh, okay, so I'm struggling with this. What exactly do I do here? Or I don't know how to begin to parent compassionately, because it's strange to them. All they've ever been told to be a man, as a father, protect, preserve, provide. It doesn't seem to go beyond that. So when it now goes into sharing your emotions, sharing your day, sharing your dreams and aspirations with your entire family, it becomes a strange space for them to be. And it's unfortunate, but it's the reality. And in this day and age of relocation and migration, it's even more turbulent than before.
But you must agree that now that traditional picture of the man in the home is changing.
Absolutely.
And that is because many more women are going out to work. So it's not just one person contributing to the home purse.
Yeah.
It is two persons. So the burden is maybe marginally reduced on the man. So the traditional role of being the protector, the provider, and whatever else you said is changing gradually. And then, of course, more and more we're seeing cases of absentee fathers. We're seeing more and more single mothers.
Absolutely. There is that in terms of this landscape of parenting. Two-income households now bear the provision aspect of being parents. But it's also interesting to see that the dynamics of relationship doesn't seem to change much. Right, it's still the expectation of, I'm still going to expect my man to take care of the shelter, take care of the school bills, take care of the major bills, right?
Basic things.
Exactly, right? But when it comes down to it, the landscape of the relationship doesn't seem to have changed that much, because now it is even more that you rarely have the wife to come home and sit down to and say, let's gist and talk and have quality time. So the idea of quality time, where you most likely in the olden days have found maybe a rickety rocking chair outside of the building where daddy would sit, and then mommy has a stool beside him, and they're just talking about the day and the children's school fees and everything. They have their own intimate time. Doesn't seem to happen anymore, because the wife is also tired. She's exhausted after driving hours in traffic. She's exhausted taking care of the family and having to think about what will they have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it has to be a balanced meal. She's exhausted, But again, it is to see that, you see, these men also, even though they don't complain, because it will seem like they don't complain that much, even though they don't complain, they also struggle with manhood. They struggle with, how can I show up effectively as a man to my family? What does my girl child want from me that would make me seem like a man? Is it for me to be all macho, or is it for me to ask her, what kind of prom dress are you going to wear, for instance? Or is it that my wife needs me once in a while to hold her hand when she's not even asking, because she's not even there, so I don't know? And sometimes for them this is a new terrain for us to navigate. And being a man seems to be changing with every definition of what womanhood is. So it's a struggle for them to catch up. And that unspoken burden comes from a space of, how do I navigate this effectively without losing my essence of what my great ancestors, who have been fathers for long, have told me to be a man is? How do I shift this definition of a vulnerable man who is whole and hearty and acceptable and seemingly compassionate, without still losing my voice as an authority in the home, right? And it's challenging, but it's doable. It still comes to that sense of where we say, oh, men love respect. Okay, but so who doesn't?
Who should the man be looking up to for this? Is it for him to look within himself, or from the people around him, his partner, his wife,
I think we have models, male models out there who have successfully navigated this terrain, but maybe they do not talk out as much as we want them to. And this would be a fantastic time for them to show up, because more and more we're having the Gen Zs, so to speak, the 20-year-olds and the 30-year-olds who are coming into that space of fatherhood a little bit earlier than even some of us did when we were growing up. And they are beginning to wonder, was this the way it was always is, and is there something that needs to change? I think the male models that have successfully navigated or perhaps made a few bumps in the road, and learned over time should come up and begin to say, well, yeah, this is a tough act to follow, but you can't do it, and these are the things you need to learn. I believe strongly that by the time that our men begin to speak with each other, not just about balls and businesses, not just about footballs and golf balls and things like that, but also about emotions and how to carry it effectively within the home. Instead of masking your fear as anger or masking your loss as hatred and resentment towards your family, it is possible for you to really have a discussion. And I think it's also important for our women to begin to be receptive of men who are vulnerable, because that's another thing that we don't talk about. We talk about absentee fathers, right? But we don't talk about women who can't stand men who are vulnerable. There is a bit of that happens too, because if your man was supposed to cry in front of you, like, what do I do here now? What do I say to this man? You're confused when you begin to see emotions coming from a man, because you weren't taught that also. But communication works.
Do you think that
communication works?
Turn out the way they are because of the expectations of the women? And I'm taking that from what you just said. So the woman is taken aback when her husband begins to cry.
Yeah.
I mean, so what's wrong with a man crying? He's human.
Yeah.
So we expect them not to cry. So they pretend to be strong because it is what we expect.
Exactly. And because they also have an expectation of how their emotions are meant to be met in that similar situation. So
is it
a woman who hasn't ever seen her father cry,
yes,
or seen affection shared between her mother and father, now comes home and finds her man sitting down, heads down, tears streaming down? The first thing she experiences in that moment is, where is this coming from? What have I done? Because she hasn't experienced. She may have experienced this with friends or peers of her age, but this is her intimate moment with her husband, and she's going like, what's going on here? What do I do in this instance? And for him, it's also the question of, how do you need your emotions to be met? So I often tell couples this: look, there's the fix me conversation when emotions are involved, and there is the hear me conversation when emotions are involved. But it all depends on your body language. So if my head is down and tears are just streaming down, that is not the time for you to ask what is going on. That's most likely the time to just sit still and have that space with that person and just listen. It's called shared space or safe space. In that moment, you do not want to begin to ask, what did you do? What happened? How can I, what do you want me to do in this moment? And if in the space of the person holds your hand and says, darling, something just happened at work today and I'm really devastated. Your first concern isn't so much as, does that mean that you have your job? Thank you.
I hope you still have your job.
Your first concern isn't how, if the person has his or her job, it's like, are you okay? What do you need right now? And not very many men get that back from their spouses, because again, they've had to wear this cloak of, I fix everything.
Yeah.
I take care of everything. Everything is going to be fine because I am here. So it is a really delicate space to be in. But when we do have that space shared with them, I think it helps them to also wear the cloak a little bit better, because there's someone there that is adjusting the cape and making you feel like you're not doing this alone, I'm here with you. And it's something that we have to reiterate, and we have to show by, example. So you asked something, do our men have models to show this to them? I think they do, but we just don't find them often enough, maybe online, saying, well, this is what it means to be a man in this space. What we more often than not, we most likely see is men who are coming to salute their women and saying, my wife is doing a lot. But in the space of balance, we need to have also men who are advocating for men and women who are advocating for men and helping them share their burden.
So will we do better by actually letting the men know that we do understand that they're human and that whatever happens, we're going to be there for them. That it is okay for them to actually show their emotion. It is not, there's nothing wrong with it. They're human.
Yeah.
So if we allowed them to be human around us.
Can we bear it? Interestingly, I was thinking back now, and I remember that my very first parenting clients were a couple of men who were concerned about, one was concerned about his son, the other was concerned about his daughter. And it was always that I'm struggling with how my child is being in this space. But if I talk about it, my wife is like, don't worry about it, you worry too much. Right? So it does seem like in some space of time, we've taken over how men are supposed to care in parenting, or how men are supposed to show this emotion. There's a level that has to be acceptable. Somebody once asked, like, okay, so if I tell you right now that I'm angry and I'm really showing my anger, can you sit down there and accept my anger? Wouldn't you say, oh, but it's enough so that you don't go overboard? And that is what it means. But if it were a woman and sitting on this table and saying, I'm really angry, and tears are streaming down her face, we come and say, oh, I'm really sorry that you're having to go through this. Anger, same emotions. And then we give them a hug. But if a man is showing the anger, we chastise and we say no, like they have no right whatsoever to that emotion, or they are going to go overboard and the woman or the people around are the ones that are going to be hurt. But it's also important for us to see that anger that they're expressing is an information of their state of mind that is also requesting compassion in that moment. Can we hold it? And can we contain it?
If you offer that compassion, you just might get pushed away.
Because it's not common. It's not a common ground. It's not a common space for me to say I'm angry, and then the next thing is you want to hug me. It's more often for me to say, okay, I hear you. I know you're angry, but is there something you want me to do or say in this moment? And in that space, the mind is like, why is she being understanding? I need you to kind of like fight me back and push me so that I can express how deeply I am feeling. So it's a learning. So I think it starts with the boys, teaching the boys right now what it means to hold their emotions, express their emotions, share their emotions.
And the confines of, not going overboard.
Not going overboard is subjective, really, if you ask me. If I were to hold a pillow to my face and I'm screaming and you just walk in without knowing what I'm doing is a power scream. In that moment, it's me unleashing all the angers and all the pain that I've held. That's why I said it's subjective. But it's also in that space of, helping our men to help them hear it over and over again until they believe it, that their emotions matter. Like, Daddy, I said to my daughter, Daddy's having a hard time. And she says, what does that mean? Like, okay, Daddy is going through some things right now. We just need to be quiet and allow him to feel his feelings. Oh, you mean we should just sit with him? And I say, yeah, we can sit with him to let him feel his feelings. She goes, okay, yeah. But, that's like a very clean scenario in that space. Can I allow him to feel his feelings when he's angry or when he is hurt in her presence? That's a different conversation, because, again, this is not something that I'm used to. And this is the same thing that goes in many households. Like, when we talk about emotions, we think it is feminine. We think it's okay for the women to feel their emotions. But when it comes to our men, when it comes to them being fathers and still holding their emotions or sharing their emotions, do we still see them in that light? Can you go back to your husband after a really bad breakdown to say, still the man of this house? And would he believe you in that moment? So it's a continuous conversation that requires a lot of compassion, and I think the more we say it, the more they hear it.
The one that is also coming to my mind now is about, of course, pregnancy, period, and for women there are books to read. You're expecting your first child, all that you need to know. And is there one for fathers? or fathers-to-be?
There are a couple, but it's another time for you to find them on the bookshelf. So
maybe online.
Maybe online.
Antenatal.
We do parenting courses, and we asked, and you probably find the ratio of 15 women to 1 man. So even that 1 man is wondering, am I in the right room right now?
So should we encourage that even for antenatal? Maybe not every time, but let the men also come so that they know what to expect. So when your wife is behaving this way, maybe for in labor, you know what to do too.
Yeah, we do ask them to show up for these antenatal, prenatal classes, but again, it goes back to, did my father do those things? Marriage counseling, as simple as, as important as marriage counseling is, you still find a lot of men say, well, my father was a very important man in his household, and he didn't go through marriage counseling. Did Jesus go through marriage counseling? Did Muhammad go through marriage counseling? Or did they teach it as a class? And these are things that, again, it comes from a space of, I'm afraid. What I hear when I hear such sentences is, I'm afraid that this is just going to change me from being the man to the house. And it's about losing this essence of masculinity that actually makes them
down.
Yeah, to make them feel like, they are what we would call woman wapa, and make them feel less important in the home. But we shouldn't also take it away from them that, some are actually trying, some are showing up as much as they can, some are struggling with it, this new idea of being fathers in this digital age, because again, they do know that the war out there is not so much as the wars of guns and swords, is as much as it is about intellectual agility and mental serenity as much as possible. So for them, it's, how do I do this and still be the man?
Okay, I think this is a conversation that should always be on the table, not just about the women, but of course the men. Thank you so much, family therapist Amina Yunus Ali.
Thank you for
sharing your thoughts with us this morning.
Yeah.
And Sunrise will be back for the home stretch. We have an opera singer in the house. To stay with us.
Yes, yes. You just heard her singing, and you probably are wondering, a Nigerian singing this kind of song? Well, yes, she is a Nigerian, and she's Biodun Koya. And she's a classical opera singer, songwriter, poet, actress, screenwriter, and philanthropist based in the United States. Yes. Please meet Biodun Koya. Well, she's green-haired, but never mind. She's not the green-haired monster.
I'm a siren.
Good to have you with us again. We haven't seen you in about 6-7 years?
They're about 2019.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID, yes. That's it.
Yes.
It's good to see you again.
I'm excited. It's lovely to be back here. First and foremost, shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Momo for having me and for even having this amazing television station. And it's so good to see you, two beautiful hosts. You've been at it for a while. You're like family now. I know you.
And we know you
too. Go.
Is that American
Yoruba? American go.
Yes. Thanks for dropping by.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Yes. Well, we saw you last in 19. That's 5 years ago.
Yes.
So what has happened in the interim?
Of course, we all know COVID happened. And right after that, I decided to enroll in acting school in Los Angeles. I'm based in California. I wanted to get into acting. And to my surprise, it's a different world. Completely. There's a lot of techniques to master. There's a lot of way to learn your lines. There's a different way to deliver. So I've been doing that, and I also released a poetry book titled "The Moods of a Goddess." During COVID, I was working on it. While everybody was busy eating pounded yam and egusi and pomo with fresh fish.
I'm sure you love that.
Before, so this is my book. I'm a new author. It's called The Moods of a Goddess. I'm proud of it. Inside it, I have a poem called Oshupa, and it's about my experience with the moon. But I titled it Oshupa, and because I also want people to know a bit about my language. But in bracket, I put the moon. So stuff like that. I created an African festival in Los Angeles last year. I was the first to do it. It's called Fest Afrique. Had a lot of Americans. I wanted them to know I'm more of an African culture, culture ambassador. I'm so proud of my origin, my culture. I think we are the best. People, if you don't know, you don't know. We also want to try with copy the Europeans. There's nothing wrong in that, but what we have is actually the real deal. I found that out during COVID.
What's that on the screen, by the way?
Oh, that's me and a U.S. congressman. He's the majority leader for the Democratic Party. That's me and Andrew Young, that singer in the middle, that Stoney, my baby, that's the mayor of Atlanta and the founder of CNN in the background. That's me and Chris Tucker, our Hollywood actor, from Rush Hour. That's Chris Tucker and his mom. You see how I'm wearing my Ankara outfit? Oh, that's Ava DuVernay, the Hollywood director.
So this was when you
This is the president of Botswana, prime minister of Bahamas, first lady of Bahamas. That's me, my green hair.
Distinct.
I'm into colors now, colorful hairstyles. Yes.
Well, you haven't done much singing since we last saw.
No, I created another brand called Christmas Opera in Los Angeles. Here I used to do frankincense concerts. I used to produce that holiday concert. It was called Frankincense Concert. But now when post-COVID, I rebranded it. I called it Christmas Opera for Los Angeles community. So I do that. I just really focus more on, my performances in the US and Europe. But I've been performing. To be honest with you, I kind of got discouraged with my country, Nigeria, in terms of, getting sponsorship was a major headache for me to do the production. And I felt like I wasn't, I didn't mind to do the work, but I'm like, I don't have to also do too much work to convince you. It was like, I had to tell them I can't sing. And I'm like, no, it's kind of like that. Like I had to prove myself. So it was so exhausting. I just want to be the artist. So it was becoming a bit challenging. I just was like, I felt like I wasn't being appreciated.
Does it have to do with, the kind of songs, music that we listen to in Nigeria?
It was just putting that production. I love live productions. I love to perform live rather than being in the studio. That's why I really don't have albums. I do concerts. I love the energy of the crowd. I love it. I feed off of it. So I'm not really interested in albums. Now and I'm like, okay, let me just record an album, And I also want to create a genre called Afro classical, putting a bit of, the Ibile-ness, my culture into mixing it with classical music. And the challenge is getting the right producer that can merge both genres, a bit of classical music and Afrobeat or Africanness into one genre.
What was it like singing at the White House at the convention?
That's a separate, the Democratic Convention Center convention was, I think that was in 2011 or 2012. White House was before then, during George Bush's. I was nervous, but me, I also wore Ankara outfit made with,
as the ambassador that you are.
Even then, I didn't even carry that Africanness in my head, but I was just so proud of my heritage, my culture, and I'm like, because I also didn't want people to think I was an American, or a Black European. I wanted my outfit to speak for me. You just saw me and...
Who is a Black European, please?
Someone, some of the Senegalese who live in France or something, Yes, or Guinea. Folks from Guinea, they live in France, they live in Germany. Yeah, so...
Yes, tell us more about your acting. You say you've been in acting school for about 3 years.
Yes.
And you are hoping to enter
Hollywood. You say Hollywood.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Hollywood. I realized, because I've always trained to be a musician, and I found out that you also have to train to become an actor. There's something called method acting. I found out. I was like, it's tedious. It's really tedious. It's completely different from the training you get to be a musician. Again, a lot of work. Serious work. You have to learn lines, you have to be able to deliver, you have to remember this positioning, camera, this, that, and that, blocking,
So now you appreciate more when you watch those movies. All of the work.
You did, yeah. I was like, this is what these people go through. But it has opened my eyes, and I want to actually make movies. Like I'm talking to you, I have 6 stories that I want to make. There's one that's sci-fi genre in it. It's really tantalizing, in fact, let me appeal to Mr. Aliko Dangote. Come and sponsor my movie. It's really crispy.
Koya is out of marketing. Plug.
Wink. For some reason, I've kind of just I've had it in mind. Like, if there's anybody I would like for them to sponsor my movie project, it would be Aliko Dangote.
Why?
He has the money, and he's enlightened. He's tasted both worlds. He understands. It's not like he's traveling. He's always in the US, abroad, and all. He knows.
Wouldn't like to approach a bank, for instance, a corporate body?
No, because I had that trauma during my concert, the Frankincense concert, approaching banks, approaching this company for come on. So I didn't even want to go there. It was too much, So I felt it was only Aliko Dangote that was just in my mind. Nobody else.
Okay.
Nobody else.
Okay.
Hoping he's hearing you, or someone
we'll pray on it.
Let's fast and pray. We'll put your big days dry fast.
We'll pray on it.
No, put your days dry fast. You, 7 days.
How many days would
one
you do?
Day. Because I have to sing.
Yes, you recently launched this poetry book.
Yes.
Called The Moods of a Goddess.
Yes.
Tell us about the poems in it.
They're different. They're poems about love. I'm a hopeless romantic.
Love.
I love love. If you see me when love, they shock me like this. I'm a different Biodun Koya. Who doesn't,
most
like
women.
Love? Most exactly.
Are in love with love.
Even men too.
Men
even animals. So love is a universal magic, language to say. But poems about love, heartbreak, about my experience about life in general. There's one poem in there called Time. And it's about 2 or 3 pages long. And it was just, I kind of looked at life and I was like, time. Now, wow, you're so powerful. You were present 1,000 years ago. You've turned powerful emperors and kings to dust, because eventually when time is what makes a baby become a man, and then he will die again, and time is still there. And you are merciless. You don't even care. You don't care if someone is powerful, if someone is kind. You eat them. I was just like, Baba, chill. It was just my stance about time. So it's about 2-3 pages long. There's also an ode to fallen giants, people who have gone. And I just sat down and I said, because life is just, people are born into this world, and a lot of people go through challenges. At the end of the day, they die, and they fought good fight.
Let me quote Samadi Yemi there. It all ends in a box.
Hey. You see that?
Okay. Now, I've opened one page for you to read.
What's it called?
Song for you.
Oh, there's one that's called Ololufemi Wasile. My love. I wrote it in Yoruba. So song for you.
Is your Yoruba that good?
I had A1 in my WAEC when I wrote Yoruba. I'm not kidding. A1, no. No go. I can't even speak Ijebu too. I just they do eyes like swell. Okay. So song for you. With you, there are no boundaries. I believe in you, and you believe in me. So there is here, and space cannot divide us. I have a song in me. You flourish me. I feel magnificent every time you smile at me. I am in love. You are always on my mind. When I think of you, I smile and yearn to hear your voice. When I think of our night giggles and duets, being in love with you is just one chance of a lifetime. Did that get you a little bit?
What audience did you have in mind when you wrote these poems?
People like you, Auntie. You.
This girl is crazy. This girl is crazy.
I am. Let me read just 2 or 3 lines from Ololufemi Wasile. Ololufemi, Ololufe. Wow, wow, Ololufe. Lábẹ́ igi ìfẹ́ ni n ó gbé dúró sí. Wọ́n ti pinnu pé ibẹ̀ ni ibùdó mi títí èmi ò fi rìn padà sínú ọwọ́ ìfẹ́ rẹ. Jọ̀wọ́ o jọ̀wọ́, àárẹ̀ ìfẹ́ rẹ mú mi. Ọkàn mi ń fà sí ọ títí ìwọ adé orí mi. Sáré wá o, sáré wá. Àárẹ̀ ìfẹ́ rẹ mú mi.
Àárẹ̀ ìfẹ́ rẹ. So that means your Ololufe ran away at some point or he traveled?
I can't tell you. That's for me to know and for you to keep guessing. If you want to know stuff about me, that's it down there.
It's for what I just read.
Is it based on a true life experience?
Of course.
Oh, you poor darling.
I know, mommy. I know. You should give me a hug after.
Yes, I will give you a hug after we go. Oh, you poor. Has he come back now?
It sounded like that.
Oh, he has come back. Oh, fantastic. Fantastic.
Yes, come back.
No wonder you're so full of life.
You know, we broke up and I really missed him and I goofed, you know, so and I corrected my error and, you know.
And he came back.
And all is good.
Could he be watching now?
He's far away.
He'll get to see it.
I'll share with him the video, but he's not currently in Nigeria. So, yes, I won't say anymore.
He can watch from anywhere.
That's true. Even me, so I can be watching from anywhere. Yes. You know, it's only when I'm in Nigeria that I watch channels.
No, you can watch channels from anywhere.
That's where. How?
The channels
online.
App.
Okay.
And you can watch us online. You can watch us on YouTube.
So anytime I see a pimple on your face, I will complain. I'll be monitoring your face.
That's allowed.
Of your face.
So, you are now into acting.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you moving away from music?
No, not really. But within the last 3 years, I sort of moved away from music. I got into productions, doing festivals, you know, having events to promote. I work with African ambassadors in Washington, D.C. As a matter of fact, some African ambassadors, they've come together to recommend me to be a cultural ambassador for the African Union. So it's not yet official, but they're still working on it because they love what I do and how enthusiastic I am about the culture.
So all we can do now is just wish you all the best.
Thank you kindly.
Whatever you decide, whether you decide to continue singing opera, which you say
I'm not sure
doesn't have a very good market in Nigeria.
That's true. You're quite right.
Doesn't have a very good market in Nigeria. Or you decide to enter Nollywood. Nollywood.
And kudos to the actors in Nollywood. You're doing a fantastic job.
Nollywood and Hollywood.
Hollywood.
We wish you all the best.
Thank you very kindly. I'm grateful.
And whenever you come to Nigeria, don't fail to stop by.
I definitely most likely will. Definitely.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Biodun Koya, opera singer and actress and songwriter and poet. She closes Sunrise for today, and I'm Alero Edu, thanking you very much for having spent your Saturday morning with us. I wish you a happy weekend and see you next week.
Indeed, do enjoy the rest of the weekend. My name is Yomi Otaigbe.